I wasn't invited, not to the family reunion, not even to the group chat. But when they needed the beach house I bought with my own money, suddenly I mattered. My mother-in-law texted like it was hers. "We'll need the keys by Friday." No, please. No explanation. I smiled at the screen, replied, "Of course," then started packing. Not my suitcase, but a plan. They thought I'd sit quietly again. But I had something they didn't know. I never stopped recording. Not them, not my house, and definitely not what happened last summer. The mornings in our penthouse always looked like a page torn out of a luxury magazine. French press coffee, minimalist white plates with sliced avocados, Derek reading the Wall Street Journal like his life depended on it. And me, always in silk, always poised, always framed. Everything about our life was curated. Every breakfast photo, every spontaneous beach kiss, every anniversary toast under dimmed chandeliers. I didn't post often, but when I did, I knew how to make it count. Derek's hand on my waist, my smile just wide enough to suggest fulfillment. #couple goals. Thousands of likes. Judith, my mother-in-law, always left a comment. "So proud of you two, my golden girl." Under that pastel-filtered affection, though, was pure air. Because in real life, Judith never hugged me, never called just to ask how I was. She was sugar when seen, steel when alone. Derek, meanwhile, played the charming husband to perfection. People adored him. Smooth, articulate, successful. If he had faults, he kept them behind perfect teeth and cologne. I used to find that alluring. Now I just found it useful. It started on a Tuesday. I was going through Derek's emails looking for a warranty for our espresso machine. He always forgot where he saved things. That's when I saw it. The subject line read, "Annual Hayes Family Reunion, Final Details." I clicked it out of instinct. The beach house was listed as the venue, my beach house, the one I bought before I met Derek. But the body of the email was what snapped something in me. Final head count. 14 adults, 4 kids. Claire won't be attending, right? Makes things simpler. It was from Judith. A thread followed, with everyone chiming in. Not one person asked why I wouldn't be there. Not one person added my name. A minute later, the email vanished. I blinked, then checked the trash. Empty. Derek had already deleted it. I waited until he got home that night. He kissed my cheek, asked about dinner like nothing was off. Over salmon and couscous, I asked, "Are we doing anything for Labor Day weekend?" He barely looked up from his phone. "Oh, family's getting together. You probably saw. I assumed you had work stuff." "I didn't know," I said. He smiled, a disarming one. "They thought you'd be busy. Don't take it personally." Don't take it personally. That's what they always said. When Judith asked me to sit in the kitchen during Christmas Eve because it's just tradition. When Derek's sister introduced me as Derek's wife Claire without adding any warmth. When I wasn't included in birthday gifts, family photos, or the group vacation last year because supposedly I had a conflicting schedule. That night, as I got ready for bed, my phone buzzed. A message from Judith. "Hey Claire, hope you're well. The family was hoping to use the beach house for the reunion. It's the perfect spot. We'll need keys by Friday. Thanks, sweetheart." No hi. No, how are you? No actual invitation. I stared at the message, not because it was shocking, because it wasn't. I typed, "Of course. Let me know if you need anything else." Then I opened my Instagram and deleted every post with Derek's family, every smiling holiday snapshot, every toast, every blessed caption, one by one. I didn't do it angrily. I did it precisely, quietly, like clicking off lights in a house no longer mine. In the morning, I walked into the living room, sunlight pouring in like a spotlight. Derek was finishing his protein shake. "Judith said you're good with the house?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, I won't be around that weekend." "Cool," he said, already scrolling through emails. "They'll really appreciate it." I watched him for a second longer than I should have, then turned away. He had no idea. None of them did. The house had a new camera system I installed last spring, facial recognition, audio-sensitive mics in every common area. I told Derek it was for security, but it was also for clarity, for evidence, for moments just like this. Last summer, they made me invisible. This summer, I'd make sure the world saw everything. I sent Judith the keys on Wednesday, a little envelope in a monogrammed pouch, hand-delivered to her downtown apartment. Inside, a note. "Enjoy the view. I'll be away on business until Tuesday. Claire." I imagined her smirking, thinking she'd won something. She didn't know the entire house had been rewired last spring. No more dusty security panels or clunky motion detectors. The new system used biometric sensors, AI-driven facial recognition, and microphones tuned to pick up whispers through walls, installed under the guise of upgraded hurricane protection. Derek didn't even ask how much it cost. They arrived Friday afternoon, 3 SUVs rolling into the gravel driveway like a victory parade. I watched from my phone, logged into the security app in a hotel room 2 cities away. Judith exited first, in oversized sunglasses and a white linen shawl, waving like a first lady. Derek's sisters followed, dragging their loud kids and louder luggage. They made themselves at home in minutes, shoes off, wine poured, music blasting. It was as if they believed this place belonged to them. And then they started talking. "I can't believe Claire didn't even offer to be here," Judith said, opening the fridge and frowning. "No real food, just almond milk and overpriced butter." "She never cooks," said Lily, Derek's older sister, with a roll of her eyes. "One time I asked her to help peel potatoes. She said she doesn't do starch." "Who even says that?" They laughed. "It's fine," Judith added. "This house should have been Derek's name only from the start. I told him that." That's when one of the nieces, maybe 7 or 8 years old, looked up and asked, "Isn't this Aunt Claire's house?" Judith didn't even blink. "No, sweetheart, Derek paid for it. It's just in her name because of some technical reason." The lie slid out of her mouth like it had lived there for years. Over the next 2 days, the footage got darker. I watched as they hosted dinner parties, invited neighbors I'd never met, and held hands in a circle around the fire pit. They toasted to family, loyalty, and legacy. Derek arrived late Sunday night. He walked in like he owned the place. I paused the video as he entered the living room. His smile a little too relaxed, his hand resting on Judith's shoulder like a little boy seeking approval. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just took notes. By Monday, I had over 17 hours of footage, casual jabs, passive-aggressive digs, subtle dismissals, and flat-out lies. Not just about me, but about each other. Things that could rip through the fabric of any perfect family. But I wasn't going to upload the videos, not yet, not directly. I opened a fresh TikTok account. No name, no photo, just a handle. Beach House Files. The first video was simple, a reenactment. A woman filmed from behind speaking to her daughter. "No, honey, this house isn't hers. She just thinks it is." The caption read, "When your mother-in-law tells your niece that the home you bought is actually her son's. Your in-laws, toxic family true event." 50,000 views overnight. Then I posted a second video, this one a voiceover over soft piano music, a woman's narration. They called me cold, but I had to be, because every time I showed emotion, they called it weakness. Another 100,000 views, thousands of comments. Girl, same. This is giving I'm watching, but they don't know I'm watching. Wait, is this real? I didn't answer the first few. Then one person commented, "This can't be real." I replied, "It is." And just like that, it took off. The beauty of fiction dressed in truth is that it gives people permission to believe, even when it terrifies them. I never used names, never showed faces. But every script, every phrase, every setting was drawn directly from the footage they gave me for free. I didn't rush it. I posted 1 video a day, each one hinting at deeper dysfunction, each one wrapped in just enough ambiguity to spark curiosity but not lawsuits. My followers grew, 20,000, then 50, then a blue checkmark appeared. BuzzFeed wrote a listicle. Who is behind the Beach House files, and why are these stories so specific? Judith and Derek had no idea. They were still in the beach house, arguing over pool temperatures and gluten-free pasta. Meanwhile, the internet was stitching together a mystery that was less fiction and more confession. I didn't want fame. I wanted understanding. I wasn't out to ruin them. I just wanted them to see me, and if they couldn't, I'd make sure the world did. I never liked noise. Not in voices, not in homes, and especially not in excuses. So when I packaged the clips, I made sure they were quiet. No dramatic music, no edits, just raw, unfiltered truth. The kind of truth people pretend to forget until it's played back in high definition. I created separate folders, each labeled with a name. One for Lily, one for Mark, one for Judith's cousin who always asked if I planned to lose the attitude. Each video showed not just what they said about me, but what they said about each other. Lily laughing about Judith's drinking, Mark calling Derek spineless, Judith saying the kids are probably all neurodivergent now because their parents can't parent. I sent them out on Thursday morning. No subject lines. Just one line in the body. You should know what loyalty looks like in your family. I logged off and waited. It took 12 hours. The first cracks were subtle. A few people left the family group chat. Then someone created a new chat without Judith. Derek's cousin posted a cryptic quote on Instagram, "Truth doesn't destroy families. Lies do." By nightfall, they were calling each other, accusing, replaying every birthday, every Thanksgiving, looking for proof that the rot had always been there. Judith scheduled a family Zoom the next day. Mandatory, she said. We need to address this betrayal before it gets out of hand. They all showed up, all 14 of them, some with wine, some with tears already forming. Derek sat in the corner, silent. His eyes flicked left and right like he was reading subtitles on a film he didn't choose. Judith began with her usual authority. I know some of you received manipulated clips. Someone clearly wants to divide us. I waited for my cue. At exactly 6:17 p.m., a new participant joined the Zoom. Username guest. No camera, no mic, just a video shared to the screen. It was Judith, sitting by the pool, saying, "Claire's just a placeholder." Derek could have done better if he didn't feel so damaged. Gasps. Silence. Then Lily's voice. "You said that?" Judith stammered. "That's out of context. But the next clip played. Lily on the patio. If Mom died tomorrow, Derek would finally breathe. And then another, and another, until the screen was a mosaic of hypocrisy. When it ended, the guest user left. No one spoke. The call ended 2 minutes later, mid-sob. By Saturday, the entire family retreat dissolved. Guests packed early. Judith left in a hurry. The beach house, once filled with laughter, now echoed with accusations. Meanwhile, I was busy. I had lawyers on retainer, the kind who didn't blink at discretion clauses or asset protection strategies. One by one, I revoked Derek's access to the joint accounts, to the company credit cards, to the property deeds. It was easy because nothing was truly joint. Derek never read the fine print. He liked bragging about being the provider, but in truth, he was just present, not necessary. On Sunday morning, Derek called. I let it ring. Then he texted, "Hey, I can't access the brokerage login. Can you check?" I didn't answer. By afternoon, he was locked out of everything. I'd even rerouted his health insurance to his personal email with a note. You might want to update this. At 7:03 p.m., I sent him one email. Subject, foreclosure body. You once told me I brought nothing to the table. Now the table's gone and you're still hungry. He never replied, but Judith did. I wasn't expecting it. She never emailed me directly. But there it was, sitting in my inbox. A 5-line paragraph about betrayal, shame, and how I'd embarrassed the entire family. The final line read, "What kind of daughter-in-law does this?" I read it twice, then opened my podcast software. The mic was warm, the room dim, the hum of the city just faint enough behind the soundproof walls. I hit record. My name doesn't matter, but my story does. I was the daughter-in-law who smiled in every photo, who brought desserts no one ate, who sat at the kids' table well into my 30s because I wasn't one of them. I kept quiet when they rewrote the past, deleted the present, and hijacked my future. I used to think silence was noble. Now I know silence is just another way to bleed. I paused, then smiled. I'm not here to burn bridges. I'm here to light the path for those still walking blindfolded. The episode uploaded at midnight. Title, The Good Wife Exit. The podcast wasn't meant to go viral. It wasn't packaged with sleek branding or promoted by influencers. It was just a voice, my voice speaking in a room barely bigger than a walk-in closet. But sometimes, the rawest stories echo the loudest. By the end of the first week, it hit number 12 on Spotify's relationship charts. By the second, it was in the top 5. People didn't know who I was. They didn't see my face, but my words, they weren't just mine anymore. I thought I was the only one, read one comment. This is the first time I felt seen. My mother-in-law told me I was too emotional when I cried at my miscarriage. I've been quiet since. Not anymore. Each episode touched a nerve. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. The archetypes were universal. The manipulative matriarch, the complicit spouse, the silent scapegoat. It was a symphony of recognition, and every listener heard their own instrument in it. One message stood out. It came as a voice memo. The woman sounded young, maybe late 20s. You don't know me, she said, but I was going to leave everything behind last night. My marriage, my job, maybe even my life. Then I listened to your episode, the one about how gaslighting feels like drowning in invisible water, and I realized I'm not crazy. I'm just surrounded by liars. You didn't just speak for me, you saved me. I sat there for a long time after that, just breathing. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was resonance. The house, the infamous beach house, had been vacated for weeks. Derek didn't fight for it. Judith didn't mention it again. They had more pressing issues, family fallouts, public image cracks, and a growing list of legal inquiries Judith could no longer ignore. I made a quiet offer through a shell company, bought the house back, clean and without resistance. Paid in full. The day I walked through its doors again, it was raining. Not the stormy kind, just soft, persistent. The kind that rinses without drowning. I changed everything. The locks, the linens, the layout. I had the windows replaced with one-way glass, clear from the inside, reflective from the outside. Not to hide, but to observe, to own my space without performance. Then I rebuilt it, not as a home, but as a retreat. I named it The Reclaim. It wasn't open to the public, there were no advertisements. Guests came through quiet referrals, women who needed a weekend of silence, safety, and space to breathe without watching their backs. The rooms weren't labeled with numbers, but with truths, worth, boundaries, enough. In the kitchen, I placed a sign. No one has to earn food here. In the library, you're not too much. I never gave them my name. I just served tea. Listened. Let them talk or not talk. Some cried in the garden. Some screamed into pillows. Some just slept for 3 days straight. I understood every reaction. Meanwhile, Judith was spiraling. Her charity foundation had failed to report donations properly. Funds had been redirected, some into offshore accounts, some suspiciously routed through family names. An anonymous dossier compiled in meticulous detail arrived on a federal agent's desk. I never watched what happened next, but I did hear Judith hired her 5th lawyer in a month. The press tried to reach me. Someone had traced the podcast back to a small production firm registered under a non-profit that just happened to own beachfront property. One morning, I received an invitation to appear on a national talk show, The Anonymous Woman Who's Unmasking Toxic Families. I declined. The producer emailed again, offering compensation, privacy, even facial blur filters. I replied with a single sentence. I'm not famous. I'm just done pretending. The world loves a story, especially when it comes with a face. But I wasn't interested in being a face. I wanted to be a mirror. At the reclaim, one woman left behind a note in her room before she departed. I thought healing would feel like fire. Turns out, it feels like permission. I pinned it inside the office, not because I needed validation, but because I'd finally learned. I didn't need to be loud to be heard. There's a strange silence that follows applause, a kind of stillness that doesn't feel like peace, but like absence. That was the silence that filled my life now. The podcast was thriving. The retreat was full. The emails were endless. Yet I sat alone every evening, watching the sky darken without a single name I wanted to call. The followers kept growing. My voice, once dismissed over dinner tables and drowned out by laughter not meant for me, had become a siren call for women around the world. But the more they leaned in, the more I felt outside of it all, like a ghost reading her own obituary. I barely spoke to anyone who wasn't a guest. I ate in silence. I wrote in silence. Sometimes I forgot what day it was. The house I had reclaimed now echoed with a different kind of emptiness, one I had built myself, brick by intentional brick. One Saturday, a new guest arrived at the retreat. She came alone, no luggage beyond a worn leather duffel. Her eyes were sharp, her posture tense. She didn't give a name, just asked if the garden was still open at night. She didn't speak for the first 2 days, just read and walked barefoot in the hallway, like she was trying to feel the ground without armor. On the third night, I found her sitting by the fire pit, staring at the flames like they owed her an answer. "You knew Derek, didn't you?" she asked, without turning her head. I sat down slowly, unsure how she knew, or if it even mattered now. I did. Her laugh was soft, bitter. "I was with him before you. College. Short and stupid." I waited. He told me he loved me, wanted to marry me. Then his mother found out I was pregnant. Her voice tightened. She showed up at my apartment with an envelope and a warning. Said if I really cared about his future, I'd do the right thing. I closed my eyes, not in shock, but in something deeper. Recognition. She told me I'd ruin his life, that his father had dreams for him. I was a liability. "And what did you do?" I asked gently. I believed her. She smiled hollow. "I went to the clinic alone, never heard from him again." We sat in silence, the kind that bends time. After a long pause, I asked, "Do you think I'm any different from them?" She looked at me then, fully. "You still feel pain. That's your difference." Her words struck harder than any insult Judith had ever thrown at me. Because she was right. I had built my life back. I had exposed their lies. I had turned trauma into a platform, but I was still hurting, still looking at shadows, still expecting warmth that would never come. That night, I walked into the recording booth for the last time. The microphone waited like an old friend who knew when to stay quiet. I took a deep breath and began. This will be my final episode, not because I've said everything I need to say, but because I've realized the power of silence once again, not the silence that hides, the silence that heals. I paused. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's not about who deserves it. It's about deciding I don't want to carry this anymore. I'm laying it down, all of it. I ended the episode with a thank you, not to the listeners, to the woman I used to be. The next morning, I packed a single suitcase. I walked through each room of the beach house, the reclaim, touching walls, whispering gratitude. Then I made the call. The house sold within a week. No public listing, no bidding war, just a clean exit. I deleted the podcast archive, closed the social media accounts, removed every trace of myself from the digital map. Not because I was ashamed, because I was ready. A week later, Judith received a letter. It wasn't long. "Thank you," it read. "Not for what you did, but for what it forced me to do. You pushed me out of the sky, and I finally learned how to fly." The book appeared with no fanfare, No author photo, no dedications, no blurbs from celebrity endorsements. Just a title in embossed silver on a matte black cover. The Wife Who Left Silently. It began as a whisper, passed from hand to hand, recommended in late-night group chats, and whispered over cafe tables between friends who spoke too softly about the weight they carried. Then the whisper became a murmur, then a roar. Within weeks, it was a bestseller. National lists, book clubs, radio spots quoting anonymous lines like gospel. I wasn't erased. I was overwritten, so I wrote myself back in. Women underlined it, posted it, tattooed it. No one knew the author. They speculated, of course. Some thought it was a journalist turned memoirist. Others guessed it was a composite voice, an editorial team compiling stories into one narrative. But no one guessed the truth. No one looked to the woman in the long gray coat at the back of the book launch, standing near the balcony with a glass of still water. Claire watched the event unfold like it belonged to someone else. In a way, it did. People lined up, not to meet the author, but to meet themselves in each other. They took pictures beside a poster with a quote from the final chapter. "Leaving isn't weakness, it's refusing to disappear." Claire stayed in the shadows, observing. She hadn't written the book for fame. She hadn't written it for closure either. She had written it because something inside her still needed to be named, and in naming it, she gave others the courage to name their own pain too. A little girl tugged at her mother's sleeve in the aisle, pointing at the display. "Mommy, is this story real?" The woman knelt beside her daughter and whispered, "It could happen to anyone." Claire closed her eyes and smiled, not because she was proud, but because she was finally still. Across the country, in a quiet nursing home nestled between the hills, Judith sat in a recliner by the window. Her hair, once meticulously dyed, had grown silver and thin. Her hands shook slightly as she turned each page. Her eyes were red, but not from age. She read the story slowly. Each paragraph hit harder than the last. Each confession, each wound bled on the page like it had waited years to surface. Judith didn't need confirmation to know who wrote it. She reached the chapter where the narrator described the day she gave her house key away, like it was borrowed time. Judith's lips parted. Her breath caught. A nurse passed by and paused. "Are you okay, Mrs. Hayes?" Judith shook her head slowly. "No," she said. Then softer, "But that girl, she is." She closed the book and held it to her chest, rocking slightly. Elsewhere, far from microphones and recording booths, Claire walked a forest trail that curved through the hills like a secret path only she knew. Her hair was longer now. Her steps were quiet. She wore no makeup, no signature scent, no jewelry. She wasn't hiding anymore, but she no longer needed to be seen. A sparrow darted across the trail, disappearing into the branches above. The wind moved through the trees without resistance. Just motion, no destination. Claire paused at a small overlook where the trees parted, revealing a quiet lake below. She sat on a stone bench, the same one she had visited years ago when she first left everything behind. In her coat pocket was a single copy of the book. No name inside, no bookmarks. Just the weight of her story pressed against her thigh. She reached in, ran her fingers across the cover, then placed it beside her and let the wind flip through the pages. It landed on the last one. The final line read, "She never needed revenge. She only needed to be free." Claire closed the book gently and stood up. There was no audience, no applause, no credits rolling. Only the sound of the wind moving through the leaves like a song that had always been playing in the background. She walked forward into the forest, unhurried, unnamed, whole.